All right, ladies and gentlemen, we wanted to shift gears. And of course, we got to deal with President Trump's surprise tweets yesterday, the rollback on the transgender servicemen and women, and how that kind of stepped on his own good news once again. So lots of things to talk about. But I want to circle back to a story that's of great importance to us here, and that is AB 109, Props 47 and 57 that have led directly to a spike in crime in the state of California and wherever you live. But there's a tiny glimmer of good news based on a court ruling that is going to allow some common sense to be restored to the process. To talk to us about this is the president of the Association of Los Angeles Deputy District Attorneys. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the show, Michele Hanisee. Michele, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, at least it's a little good news, right?
It's a little good news. It's a bit of a relief in a long year of bad legislative news.
Tell us what the courts ruled.
Well, the court basically said that individuals who are serving third strike sentences are not allowed to get early release under provisions that were supposed to apply under Proposition 47, which realistically would require a court to release someone earlier or basically reduce their sentence unless there was a showing this person was basically going to commit one of the most violent crimes out there, like murder or rape. So if the court had 100% belief this person was going to go beat their wife, that wouldn't be enough not to reduce their sentence. You'd have to have a showing that they were going to commit a super strike or an unreasonable probability that they would do so.
And how will this, I mean, again, the system is, we keep whipsawing the system around. What's the practical impact of this?
Well, the practical impact is this court ruling makes us a little bit safer and reduces the likelihood that some potentially really violent people could be getting released earlier than what they were sentenced to. But the main message to be found in the court's main opinion and the dissenting opinions is that it doesn't matter what voters are told they're voting for in a ballot description. If there's some hidden language, legalese buried in thousands of words of text, it doesn't matter that the voters weren't told about that.
We're talking about Michele Hanisee, who's the president of the Association of Los Angeles Deputy District Attorneys. Ultimately, in my opinion, Prop 47 and 57 need to be undone at the ballot box. Is that the only way that these things can be undone, is by another ballot measure?
In their entirety, the answer is mostly yes. They could be undone in small pieces by our legislature, and certain legislators have attempted to do so, but all those measures have been shot down. They've been killed in committee.
Michele, all of this started because of a serious overcrowding problem in the California penal system. And the state knew about this, and Governor Schwarzenegger at one point was talking about we need prison construction. Then he kind of punted on the issue. Jerry Brown made no effort to lead a prison construction movement. And we ended up with these measures to essentially accomplish what the courts said we had to do, which is empty our jails and provide a measure of political cover, because this way the politicians can claim, well, we're not releasing the prisoners. We're sending them to the county jail. But they get released from the county jail because the county doesn't have space for them. Now, that still leaves us with the issue. If we were to fix this problem, we're going to end up rearresting people as they commit new crimes and go through all the expense and the victimization, et cetera, and people back in jail. How do we fix this problem so that we don't end up trying to repeat? It's like the shampoo bottle, rinse, repeat, rinse, shampoo, rinse, repeat, shampoo, rinse, repeat. I mean, we have a prison population that is enormous, and we don't. It's unfortunate, but it's a practical reality of an enormous state, a state that's got a larger population than all of Canada, with a lot of drug crimes, a lot of gang issues. What do we do about this?
Well, what happens is the state keeps saying we're going to use all the money we save by not incarcerating these people on rehabilitation, but the money never seems to materialize for really substantial rehabilitation. is what happens. And Prop 47 emptied out the drug programs. People were going to drug programs before because there was an actual threat that if they refused to go, they would have to do the jail time instead. Now, without that threat of jail time, they just don't go. No one's in the drug programs anymore. So Prop 47 did not help with drug addiction at all. It actually hurt our ability to treat drug-addicted individuals.
It's just it's a social disaster, and we've documented. I mean, it's not an accident that we're seeing this explosion of burglaries because we've essentially told criminals that as long as you steal up to $949, don't steal that $950th dollar because then you're in trouble. But at $949, it's a misdemeanor. And, you know, it could get pled down to an infraction or nothing. And that's a problem. And we've seen an explosion. We've talked to people from the retail associations that shoplifting has skyrocketed. So, you know, we've essentially sent out all the wrong messages here.
Oh, not only have we sent them out, we've sent them out to other states. Criminals are now coming to California from other states to commit crime here because they have heard how soft on crime California is.
Well, you know, this is not a problem. This is not an asteroid that's hurtling towards Earth, and we don't know what to do about it. This is a problem that was created in Sacramento, and it can be solved in Sacramento. This is a problem that we created ourselves. And by the way, I think that we the people bear a certain responsibility on this because we don't vote for things like prison construction because most people figure, I don't care if they stacked prisoners 10 deep in a bunk bed. They deserve what they get because they did something rotten. Well, the problem with that thinking is the overwhelming majority of inmates get out because they're not serving life sentences. And when they get out, what's going to happen if they've been living under god-awful conditions, and it creates this whole cycle of violence. It makes it very dangerous for the prison guards, et cetera. We just have to accept the fact that we've got an enormous population, and unfortunately, when you have a lot of freedom, you can end up with a lot of people making terrible choices.
Well, that's true, but I think the people making the terrible choices that we need to be more concerned with are our elected officials, and you basically get the government you demand. So if you don't know what your local your assembly person's doing or your local senator's doing and how they're voting on these issues, you're basically conceding that you agree with everything they're doing.
How did they, in the last election when the Californians approved Prop 57, in the same ballot, they also voted to expedite the implementation of death penalty sentences in California. And it seems to be, you know, a contradiction that the same voters who would vote to let a whole bunch of people out of jail would at the same time vote to execute people faster. How did that happen?
That is because the voters were flat out lied to. They were told that Prop 57 only applied to nonviolent offenders. And the public never understood exactly what that meant, what it meant to be a, quote, nonviolent offender. It didn't mean that you didn't commit a crime of violence against someone. And it's even worse now. The Department of Corrections in the state has published the regulations to implement Prop 57. And I will read to you exactly what that says. It says, a nonviolent offender includes the following: an inmate who's completed a determinate term of incarceration for a violent felony and is concurrently serving a concurrent term for a nonviolent offense. So they're specifically defining as a nonviolent offender someone who was sentenced for a violent crime.
Yeah, it's almost who's on first. I mean, it's an Abbott Costello routine only set into law. Michele, thank you as always for talking about this, for the work that you do with the Association of Los Angeles Deputy District Attorneys. The people who are in the front lines, the cops and the district attorneys are in the front lines of this fight, and the probation officers and the prison guards, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess we the people are also, because look at the explosive growth of crime. And the politicians who support this jibber-jabber are out there basically lying about it and denying. They talk about Republicans being anti-science. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in this state are anti-mathematics and anti-demographics and anti-fact in their own way. It's just that they deny different facts. Michele, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you down the road. Michele Hanisee,